I have always been interested in Greece. It's often called the cradle of Western civilization and culture due to its profound contributions to philosophy, politics, art, and science. Ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle laid the foundational principles of Western thought, exploring ideas about ethics, governance, and logic. Here are a few recorded ideas from over 3,000 years ago that are still true today. At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. The measure of a man is what he does with power. In a democracy, the poor will have more power than the rich because there are more of them and the will of the majority is supreme. I had learned that ancient Greece thrived in a unique environment that fostered innovation, democracy, and thought. The city-state of Athens emerged as a cultural and political hub. The stability of the area allowed for cultural flourishing. Artists and architects produced iconic works like the Parthenon and Acropolis that blended beauty and civic pride. The Greeks celebrated human life through theater, philosophy, and sculpture. Therefore, when I learned that Rick Steves was offering a tour of Greece a few days after my tour of Italy, it was an easy decision to sign on. I flew from Rome to Athens in early June with a 2-week tour. I met up with the Rick Steves group a couple of days later and learned that the next day we'd be climbing to the top of the Acropolis. Wow. Fortunately, they provided us an attractive tour guide who was also very knowledgeable about the history and culture of the area. The Acropolis of Athens is one of 19 World Heritage Sites in Greece. I think it's the most striking and complete ancient Greek monument that still exists in our times. It sits on a hill over 400 feet above Athens. Of course it was crowded. It's about 600 steps to the top. But I made it. Strong fortification walls that have surrounded the summit of the Acropolis for more than 3,300 years. Monuments were developed on the hill by an exceptional group of architects and sculptors. We were told that at this complex, the Greeks developed their cultural achievements of logic, philosophy, and democracy. We next visited the new Acropolis Museum nearby. It is Greece's premier repository of ancient artifacts and houses one of the world's most expansive collections of classical antiquities. We heard that many of these artifacts date from over 3,000 years before Christ. The following morning, we took our bus from Athens to Delphi. We were told that over the centuries, the word spread throughout the Mediterranean region that oracles there communed with the gods, and they could give you answers to challenging questions. Subsequently, rulers, religious leaders, and wealthy merchants traveled there from all over the region to ask their questions. The Delphic oracle ranked high among the sacred sites of ancient Greece. Devotees flocked here from far and wide to ask for the guidance of Apollo in making decisions. Wars were fought, and marriages were sealed on the basis of the oracle's advice. This is an artist's conception of the Temple of Apollo. The temple contained this inscription of the Delphi maxims: "Know thyself, and nothing in excess." We took a short walk from the ruins to a modern Delphi museum that held countless treasures from the temple. I was impressed with this marble Sphinx of the Novians that dates from before 560 BC. And this full-size bronze statue of a lady charioteer. She dates from around 470 BC. We learned that few bronze statues remain today because so many were melted down to get bronze and other valuable metals. The following morning, we boarded our bus and started the next leg on our adventure to Olympia. We were delayed on our trip a few times by sheep that seemed to think they owned the road. But with the help of a sheepdog and the shepherd, we got by. One of the very special places I wanted to see in Greece was Olympia. It is a World Heritage Site and well deserved. The history of Olympia dates back to about 1,000 years before Christ, when it became a major center for the worship of Zeus, the king of Greek gods. The sanctuary of Olympia was home for the Temple of Zeus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The first Olympic Games were held here about 300 years later. Games were then held every 4 years as part of a religious festival honoring Zeus. Athletes from many Greek city-states competed in running, wrestling, and chariot racing. The ancient Olympic Games continued until around 400 years after Christ, when they were banned by a Christian Roman emperor. Soon after, many of the buildings were destroyed by religious zealots. As you may know, the Games were not started again for almost 1,500 years, until they were revived in Athens in 1896. As I mentioned earlier, at one time, Olympia contained one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, when it held a colossal statue of Zeus made of ivory and gold. It stood over 38 feet tall and is shown here. Historians and artists have also recreated this conceptual drawing of what the Olympic Games site looked like during its heyday. Our guide showed us this spot where the Olympic flame is ignited today. A group of women representing the Vestal Virgins perform a celebration at this site, which is the Temple of Hera. The fire is kindled by light from the sun when rays are concentrated by a parabolic mirror to light the flame of the Olympic torch. It is then carried around the world. The following morning, we drove south, following the coastline to an isolated village. We learned that this area is home to generations of long clan wars among the local people. We stopped at a seaside town called Messenia to spend the night. Had pizza and a beer with some friends from Oregon. It was hot and humid the next day, and I was hoping to go snorkeling. 4 teenagers from Oklahoma were with us on the tour, and it turned out that they also wanted to go snorkeling. So we chartered a small boat nearby. The captain took us down the coast for some beautiful scenery. He told us there were several caves along the coastline. This cave was so huge that we were able to motor into it. The cave looked like it would be interesting to explore. The young lady with us thought it would be a little spooky to go any deeper. We turned around and motored out. Later on, down the coast, we anchored to go snorkeling and swam into this cave. The entrance was dark and maybe a little scary for the kids, but we dove in and had fun. Monemvasia, often called the Gibraltar of the East, is a historic fortress town in Greece with significant strategic importance. Founded in 583 AD, it served as a critical stronghold in the Byzantine, Venetian, and Ottoman empires, protecting trade routes and resisting invasions. Its name, meaning single entrance, reflects its natural defenses, with the town accessible only through a narrow causeway. Monemvasia became a bustling medieval center, renowned for its wealth and architecture, including Byzantine churches and fortified walls. Today it stands as a reserved monument of medieval East, reflecting its rich history and enduring legacy. Sparta was a famous city in Greece that I wanted to visit.
It had been a prominent city-state in ancient Greece, renowned for its military-oriented society and unique social structure. Spartan boys were required to enter a rigorous military training system at age 7, where they were taught survival skills, combat techniques, and endurance. This created a professional army that was unmatched in Greece. We took a short drive the next morning to the mysterious site of Mycenae. It was founded about 1,600 years before Christ. This was the home of King Agamemnon, if you can pronounce that. He must have been powerful because they built this impressive underground crypt formed by huge stones weighing over 10 tons. How in the heck did they move them? Famous Lion's Gate was the only entrance to the fortified city of Mycenae. It was the center of power in ancient Greece. Arrowheads of the adjacent museum made me think that this basic design has really stood the test of time. That evening, our tour group was treated to a traditional Greek meal of moussaka, dolomites, that's stuffed grape leaves, and souvlaki. And we were entertained by 3 local musicians, and as you see, some of our tour friends joined in a traditional Greek dance. Our dessert was baklava. Our next visit was to Epidavros. It's also a World Heritage Site. It was once the most famous healing center in all the Mediterranean area. It boasted a hospital, a nursing facility, sanctuary, and a guest house. The facility also had its own amphitheater, which dates from the 4th century BC. It boasts around 2,000 seats. I climbed up and down with the help of my walking stick. Shown here are some of the surgical instruments that were used in the hospital. I was surprised to learn that they were actually performing many different operations at that time, including brain surgery. The next day, we drove to the slopes of Mount Maestris. I had mixed emotions about this day because it was touted as the most strenuous hike of the trip. We were to walk about 8 miles with stairs and rocks and uneven terrain. Since I knew it would not be coming this way again, I gave it a shot. We learned that the slopes of this mountain once held the ancient city of Maestris, Greece, as a testament to the grandeur of the Byzantine Empire. It quickly rose to prominence as a political and cultural hub. Its fortified walls encircle a city that once bustled with life. Winding streets led us past an array of stunning Byzantine churches, some adorned with intricate frescoes that have withstood the ravages of time. We learned further that Maestris also played a crucial role in the preservation of Greek learning during the waning days of Byzantium, and it fostered a revival of classic studies that would later influence the Italian Renaissance. Today, Maestris lies in ruins, a hauntingly beautiful site that invites some contemplation of its storied past. The city's remnants speak of the bygone era of power, faith, and artistic achievements, and it is a treasure of Greek history. Our next ride was on a ferry to the island of Hydra. It is now a captivating destination for its rich history, culture, and scenic beauty. Today, Hydra is famous for its well-preserved architecture with traditional stone mansions lining the hillsides. It also has a strict ban on motor vehicles. On Hydra, donkeys play a vital role in daily life as the island is famously car-free. The narrow and steep streets pathways make it kind of impractical for motor vehicles. So donkeys and mules are the primary means of transportation for both people and goods. We often see donkeys carrying everything from construction materials to luggage and even refrigerator. Animals become a charming and iconic symbol of Hydra and kind of contributes to the unique atmosphere. Of course, donkey rides are also popular among tourists. We're told that donkeys were first used on Hydra around the year 1785, but their use was cemented there in 1950 by a presidential decree. We had a free day to ourselves, so many people of our tour group decided to spend it at a local beach. A few of the local teenagers decided to go swimming. Wish I were a little bit younger. That evening, I stopped by Harborside Taverna for an Aperol Spritz and some delicious lasagna. Yummy! The last evening on Hydra, some of us strolled along the harbor, eating gelato and enjoying the sunset. Here I am, posing with one of the teenagers that went snorkeling with us earlier. Our final stop on the Rick Steves tour was the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. I learned something here that I found interesting, in that during World War II, as Nazi forces advanced toward Athens, Greek citizens and museum staff took extraordinary measures to protect the invaluable artifacts housed there. They buried many of the museum's most precious artifacts within the museum itself. They carefully wrapped and concealed everything in protective materials, including wax, and placed them in special underground chambers and basements. Statues and fragile items were buried in deep pits dug within the museum's garden and floors. This remarkable act of preservation ensured that many of the Greece's most important cultural treasures survived the war unscathed, allowing them to be unearthed and returned to public display once the Nazi occupation ended. At our final night together, we shared a sampling of many delicious Greek dishes, ending with my favorite baklava. It was then time to say goodbye to many of the friends we had made on our journey. So after many hugs and kisses, it was time to say goodbye and fly home to my old friends at Paradise Valley Estates.